Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Inevitable, that podcast with no spatial awareness, because this week we watched Darling.
Written by Bill Gallagher.
Directed by Nick Horan.
And aired on November 16th, 2009.
The episode 4 lull of the 6 episodes story, in my opinion. The episode 4 lull.
I guess I'm conflicted about how I feel about this one.
There is, I think there is some interesting ideas in this episode. I don't know if the episode itself is super compelling or compelling enough to carry those ideas, basically.
Yeah, I think it did play with the whole dream thing a lot more. On the one hand, I'm enjoying that. On the other hand, we've had that, toyed with and probably will have it toyed with for the rest of the show. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this one might have been a little weaker plot-wise, although I did like the whole that they they're not introduced because we had seen it before, but I like that aspect of it because it's just like, what is this? You have no idea. And, it's just this thing that's thrown in of the characters have to deal with it. It's never explained. It's never really even discussed too much.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to become more prominent in the next couple episodes. I mean, this episode it sets up a lot of things, let's say. It's not necessarily one that's here to give us answers. Not that the previous 3 episodes were giving us, bucketfuls of answers, but there were some answers in there. And this one, I think, is probably the first episode that I leave with more questions than answers.
Yeah, before we get into it, one thing this episode really made me consider was how these were originally broadcast on AMC, which is over the course of 3 nights, 2 episodes per night. And I'm trying to imagine myself and us for the podcast watching them that way. And, I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, that's probably not, the optimal way to watch them. There's still an episodic nature to this show, even if it's far less than the original Prisoner. So just having this one slammed together with episode 3, I don't know. I mean, you're there for 2 hours. It's these 2 distinct stories, which I guess can help break up the monotony. But they just don't go together, really.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. This story, it's doing a lot of interesting things, and putting it into 2 episode chunks like that is an interesting idea, and airing it 3 nights in a row is interesting because it kind of is like, well, it's a 6-hour movie then. But I do think that it's not. I think it is 6 separate stories that have an overarching plot.
Yeah, it's like when we watched Children of the Stones, that one really just was like a pretty long movie. Not even pretty long because the episodes were only like 25 minutes, and they had a lot of recap. And it was just like a movie split into 7 parts, really.
Right.
That's really the one where you could air that over probably 1 or 2 nights and really just cut out the excessive caps, and it would probably be even more successful, just like enjoyment-wise.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to imagine this like sandwiched with, was it Anvil last week for us? Previous episode?
Yeah,
yes, Anvil.
Yes.
Like, I'm trying to imagine the like whiplash you would experience watching Number 6 as a secret agent investigating people, and then we discover some holes into Number 6 getting matched with the love of his life in the next episode.
Mm-hmm. And you can see the way they did it, where it's like this one it's not episode 3, it's not the actual midpoint of the series that has the cliffhanger here. It's episode 4 because of the way they originally broadcast it. So I'm glad we actually, had that bit of knowledge and understood why it was like that.
Yeah, the cliffhanger to Anvil is very low key. It's just like the holes exist. Like, what are the cliffhanger to episode 4 is like, this person in the village is revealed to be someone that Six knew before the village. An explosion has gone off. People are dying. Rover's killing people. Like,
And the one person who probably could provide him answers, besides number 2, who obviously isn't going to, just jumped into a bottomless hole.
yeah.
Or more like fell. Although she did it on purpose, so fell doesn't really fully encapsulate that.
Well, it's fell if you're 137's kid.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't on purpose,
Yeah.
I assume.
Yeah. 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 Well, was it? Yeah, 147, I think.
147 is the taxi driver.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, unless you have anything else to preface this with, we can just jump right into to yet another 50-minute dream sequence.
Yeah, I mean, I watched this yesterday, went to bed, had a wild dream. Just like on that topic of it being dreamlike, I had a full murder mystery dream, full plot, full like there was a perpetrator, there was like 8 suspects, there was it was like a full-on murder mystery in my dream. It was awesome, but also like I wonder if that was related to watching this very weirdly dreamlike TV show. I didn't watch it right before I went to bed, but I was one of the last things I did yesterday.
Yeah, that's I have those all the time where it's like it's a full story and it's like, yeah, they're mostly like mysteries or action, and it's just like, yeah, those are the best. It sucks when you wake up right before the mystery's solved. That always happens to me.
Oh man, yeah. I don't want to go down the tangent, but I woke up right after the perpetrator was revealed. The detective had figured it out and then gotten shot by them, and I woke up and I'm like, no, what happens next?
Yeah, and it sucks because like you were the one telling that story to yourself, and when you really try and remember it, it wasn't like even a solid story or anything, but it's like you were in that moment, you lived that in your mind, and it's just like, I need to know.
Oh wow. At least we can discern the plot of this TV show.
I don't know. Do you think that this episode is going to end that way, where it's like it's going to end inconclusively, almost as if you've just woken from a dream that you really can't put together, and we'll just be left in a couple weeks being like, I need to know.
No, I think we'll get answers. I think we'll get answers.
For better or worse, you know?
For better or for worse. I mean, I agree. For better or for worse. So let's dive into this week's episode, though. So, first off, I want to talk about, for a hot second, the DVD menu. So, as we've mentioned, we're watching these on DVD. The first 3 episodes are on disc 1, the second 3 are on disc 2. The disc 1 menu image is like pretty benign. I think it was just like 2 in his mansion. But like the disc 2 opening image is like 2 and 6 shrouded in shadow, just their eyes failing looking at you. It's really menacing and
Wait,
sinister.
Okay, so disc 1 for you, the menu was 2 in his mansion? Because for me...
Well, I don't remember exactly what it was, honestly.
For me, it was just that, like, you know, the key image of the show or whatever with 6 standing on the rocks in the desert and, like, looking confused.
Yeah, it might have been that. I honestly don't remember.
Just wondering because, like, I don't know, I was thinking over the past couple of weeks that, like, my disc 1 was, like, some sort of weird bootleg, which I don't think it was because I bought this sealed for $15, like, brand new, supposedly. But
why did you think that?
Well, because my disc 1 didn't go to the menu. It just played the episodes.
Oh, so I didn't actually mention this on... Mine did that. Mine didn't do that when I watched episode 2, but it did when I watched episode 3.
That's really weird.
So, curious to see if disc 2 is going to do that next week when I load it up.
Yeah. I've bought bootleg DVDs before too, and unbeknownst to myself. So yeah, I was duped before online. Like, So,
Just admitting that on recording.
oh well, I don't
Nice.
care. Anyway, the episode begins with Six's flashback sequence, his real life, in quotes. Lucy's passed out on the apartment hallway, in the apartment hallway. They were going to go to Simicor, but then they decided to just go back and, like, make out or something. I think.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. My notes literally just say, all right, into him being driven home. Next note, got to take Lucy to Simicor. Next note, the TV is talking to Six.
Well, we see another hole, which...
Yeah, this one's outside Two's mansion,
right,
I think.
Right. And this episode, right from the very beginning of the hole's subplot, paints this picture of, like, the holes being new, a new element in the story. But that's not the case. We saw them in the earlier episode. Which is so, again, it just makes it even more dreamlike of, like, things just kind of happen when they happen, not according to, like, rhyme or reason.
Mm-hmm.
It also makes it feel similar to the original show where it was not broadcast chronologically. Although it's not. This one is not broadcast chronologically. It is chronological, seemingly.
I believe it. I mean, this episode to me seems to imply that there are two timelines that we are seeing. We are seeing them in parallel, but they don't happen at the same time. And I'm starting to wonder. Which of the timelines is the one that's like real, so to speak, or if they're both real.
That's been pretty obvious from the start, at least in my opinion. That like the way I imagined it was like the whole thing with Lucy was before he went to the village, because I think he describes that as having happened, like the only thing he can remember or something like that.
Yeah, in this episode, it's clearly that has to have happened before because he calls 415 Lucy. But like the fact that now in this episode specifically, we start to see things that are happening in both timelines mirror each other. And that's, I mean,
and they are blending into each other visually as well. Most of the instances happen later, so we'll get there when we get there. But like, yeah, there are scenes where you're unsure for a second if it is because the actress who plays Lucy now plays another in quotes character here. So you wonder in some of the scenes, okay, is this the flashback or is this the village? You know.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to get there. So the holes have appeared. Number 2 has, I forget where I picked up on this in the episode. Again, it's like a dream. You don't know when things start and when things stop. There's no clear like thing of number 2 making an announcement that the holes are like a weather phenomenon. But over the course of the episode, you just pick up on that fact that that's what he's kind of said to the village.
Yeah, that's the party line, so to speak.
But yeah, Six's TV is talking to him. It's blink match technology, and it's all in its glory, in its whatever the phrase is, in all its glory. And so Six goes into a little consultation where he's going to be basically matched up, sort of like in not speed dating, but just an arranged date or something like Tinder or a dating app, but you don't pick the person and they're just picked for you.
Yeah, this is like they're using the computer to match people together.
Mm-hmm. So Six gets paired with someone. At first he wants nothing to do with it, but then he sees someone who looks uncannily similar to Lucy on the screen, so he goes through with it. They meet in the diner.
And he's got nothing to lose, so...
Yeah, I mean, what else does he do in his spare time? That's the one thing the original Prisoner showed us, is that, like, Six kind of had he had a routine. He had a life in the village. He played chess. He read the village paper or whatever. He was always trying to escape, but, like, imagine like a sitcom, slice of life comedy about, like, number 6, Patrick McGowan, in his downtime, just in the village with a laugh track. Between
Why?
escapes.
Why have you done this?
Escape attempts, I should say. So he goes to the diner. That's where they're having their meeting or their date or whatever. So 4:15, which is the person he matched with. She's like, yeah, she's dressed up, whatever. It's just going on this date or whatever. 6, just wearing the same wrinkled shirt that he's been wearing this entire time.
6 only has one outfit. Like the original show, 6 only has one outfit. Just seems like in this one, we're actually seeing the degradation of the outfit the longer the show goes on.
Yeah, we actually see him in 2 different outfits in this episode, I think for the first time.
Shocking.
Yeah.
I'm positively shocked.
But it's actually okay because we quickly learn, and 6 quickly learns that 4:15 is supposedly blind. She's not looking him in the eye, and he's not even mentioning it, but she goes you can bring up the elephant in the room, right? And she tells him that she had this traumatic dream as a kid, which blinded her.
Yeah, we're all suspicious of that, especially given the ending.
Number 6, you can tell, is basically just there to tease out whether she's Lucy or not. He keeps trying, and she's she's getting suspicious of it.
Yeah, she's starting to get mad sus. To use the hip lingo the kids are doing nowadays.
They go back to 6's place, I believe, and he's really going for it, just trying to figure out who she is, and she has had enough, basically, and she's like, look, I'm leaving.
Understandable. Things are getting a little weird. The date went weird directions.
Mm-hmm. Throughout all of this is the basically the part in the episode where it's you're intersplicing this with Lucy and 6 back in his New York apartment, and there's some shots where it cuts between the two, and for a second you don't know who it is. Or you know who it is, but you don't know what time period it is.
Yeah, they do a really good job with this because they color grade the past and the present differently. One's orange tinted and one's blue. And you actually see the color grading fade between the two when it's cutting back and forth, and it's really trippy. And you can see 6 is... it gives you the sense that 6 is experiencing this cut back and forth himself and is unable to figure out which timeline he's actually in at the moment, having flashbacks that are so real. He's living through them again.
And it does. It almost introduces this interactive element where you're kind of doing detective work. You don't need to do it for too long because it eventually becomes clear what you're seeing. But you're almost doing this detective work where it's I noticed Lucy and 4:15 were wearing different earrings, and that's when they were really doing close-ups on her, that's the only difference that I could tell. So I was just looking at her earrings, just trying to figure out what was what.
Yeah. Yeah, you never really know. Even when you settle on the color grading, you never really know for sure.
Right.
And that's wild.
But you know who else doesn't know things for sure? 11-12, because he, as number 2, finds out, because he's watching him on security camera footage or whatever, is stealing the meds that he's been giving to his wife. Stealing the meds that number 2 has been giving to his wife, which is also 11-12's mom.
Right, 11-12 is curious to know what these are, obviously. And he brings them to 313 or 313 to figure out what they are. We get a resolution to the storyline a little bit later.
Mm-hmm. And now, so I believe 6 goes and meets up with 147 because, there's a hole right outside his place, which we saw last week as well. And last week, my interpretation of it was that the mines were in the hole.
Yeah, that was also my interpretation. independently of you, I had that same
But I guess
interpretation.
that's wrong, right? Like,
This episode seems to imply that yes, that is
yeah, I
wrong.
guess we really don't have clear answers. Um, yeah, other than this episode saying like, yeah, it's literally just oblivion down there, indicating that yeah, it's not the mine. Again, one of those weird things that yeah, just weird, bizarre. I like how it's all being done though. I think it's being done very, successfully and where it's this show does a good job of making you think one thing and then being like, haha, nope.
Yeah, it's doing it. Does it never feels like a cop out or like a. It never feels like a gimmick. It feels like it's relevant to the story. Like what you said with Six and the cutting between the timelines and Six himself not even knowing what timeline is which. You as the audience are subject to the same thing that the character is.
Yeah,
It's never
it's
used
almost
for
like the
gimmicky
show itself is
purposes.
playing like this psychological game with you because, like, yeah, the way episode 3 is cut makes it seem like the mines are down the hole, but that's not the case. You just psych yourself into thinking that just because of, television and movie, I don't know, you would call it standards, trends of like how things are cut and how things are shown. And when you actually realize it doesn't, yeah, like you said, it doesn't feel like a cop out because you realize that, like, you just tricked yourself into thinking that basically.
Mm-hmm. Because the episode never told you that. You just assumed that based on what you saw in the episode.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't
Tricked
know how
you.
I feel about that. It's a little discomforting.
You feel good about it. You feel completely fine. In fact, you're
I am
impressed.
impressed by it. I'm also a little creeped out by it in a sense of like, yeah, um, when they were making the show, like they knew they had to have known of like people are gonna get confused by this, and we're gonna keep them confused for as long as it takes. Well, maybe
Forever.
forever, but as long as it takes for them to watch the next episode, and it worked.
They
They're
got
like those
us.
bootleg DVD sellers. It worked.
Tricking you until. Tricking you.
It's okay. I've sworn off eBay at this point.
Well, that's probably a good move. For a
Yeah.
lot of reasons. Not the least of which is that.
Yeah, and the most of which probably is like the fact that I've never done this, but I've been tempted to. It's like the fact that eBay tempts you into just, the way it works and the way it's set up, into just raising your bid hundreds upon hundreds of dollars
Yes.
in the last 5 seconds.
Yes. Yes.
Or not.
I haven't regretted anything I've purchased on eBay in those final seconds. Nuh-uh.
No, I've never made like. I actually haven't made like risky or hundreds of dollars purchases on eBay, but it's like, yeah, in those last seconds, you are tempted to multiply the price like many times what it's currently at.
I've raised the price of something I was bidding on. I've gone above what I originally was like. That's my maximum, but I've never gone more than like $10 to $20 above like what I was like. That's
Yeah.
the most I would pay. Because at that point, then I just start. I'm like, no, 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 no. Even if I'm tempted. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. There are holes everywhere, including in 147's backyard.
Yeah, he's wondering whether he should report it, and he decides like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go have lunch, and then I'm gonna report it. Turns out he should have done those things in the opposite order because of what happens next.
Wow. Wow. So he's inside eating lunch, and we get this little conversation between 6 and 147, basically revealing that they were matched by the matching service. 147 and his wife were matched using the matchmaking computer service. And they credit that to why they have such a long-lasting and strong marriage.
Really setting you up for the fall that's about to happen. Both falls, both the falling apart of their marriage and the literal fall that's literally happening right now.
Yeah, so 147 goes, hang on a minute, where's
Oh, it was eight something. I'll look
I don't
it
know
up.
the daughter's number.
Was it 832? I think.
Good luck.
It's the only.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
the only one on the cast
Why not?
list that I'm seeing starts with an 8, and I remember that it started with an 8.
All right, it's 832 then. Decided now.
Yeah, 832 is on her trike or whatever, and she's approaching the hole, and she doesn't realize it's there. No spatial awareness, literally none.
Yeah, when I said that before we started recording, Keon was like, she's like 3, and I'm like, no way. No way, she's only
she's
3.
Like, yeah, like you said, she's maybe 4 or 5.
But yeah, she falls down the hole just as 147 comes running out of the house, just in time to see her plummet into the
Right.
depths of nothingness.
147 looks like he's about to just dive in right after her, but 6 and the people who show up because they called it in stop him.
Thank God for that. 6 also mentions that there's nothing down there, it's just oblivion.
Yeah, I think that's a little later.
Yeah, I think it's a little later when 147 is actually looking at the hole.
How do you... This is something that I kind of had in the back of my mind but didn't fully realize until now, is like, how do you feel about this number 6, like having friends in the village? I kind of... Yeah, I'm okay with it too.
Okay
I think I like that decision because number 6 in the old Prisoner, he was more of a lone wolf, you know. He really just did things on his own. There weren't too many recurring characters. So, and actually he was the only recurring character. Even the number 2s weren't recurring. And the butler. But it was like, yeah, he never really feel like he had settled into the village, and never really felt like he had fit in, which is okay. Obviously that show wasn't, you know, trying to do that or anything. But like, yeah, this 6, like, yeah, he has friends in the village, and you kind of get that with his friendship with 147 and 313 even. So, or 313.
Well, I like this too because it shows the difference in their approaches to trying to figure out what's going on in the village, right? The original 6 was antagonistic to everyone who talked to him because he was immediately suspicious of anybody that they might be working for the village, so to speak, right? Whereas this number 6 is becoming friends with everyone because he hopes to find out what's going on there.
Right, and it's probably just down to like how much information they have. This number 6 has a lot less than the original number 6. I mean, the village told Patrick McGowan's number 6 what they wanted and almost flat out explained what the village is. But anyway, everyone gets a pig. I really like how this part of the episode is done. It like really disorients you. And in the span of just like a minute, basically, it's like as soon as 832 falls down the hole, 147's relationship with his wife falls apart. And they're having some strife, like literally right after she falls down the hole. And then you cut to everyone getting a pig, as mandated by number 2. And then you cut right back to marital strife. And it's so weird. It's so weird how you do that.
The pig thing is so weird too. Like, they just start this whole campaign where they're like, yeah, pigs will save you. Pigs are great for you. And just like, it's so weird. It's so weird.
Maybe it's going to become like, I don't know, symbolic or something. Because like, yeah, pigs... I think I've read, I don't know how true this is, but like, yeah, they're the only animals who like, the only like livestock food, animals used as food, like on a wide scale that like that are smart enough to know when they're being led to slaughter and will try to escape or something like that. So, I don't know.
Right.
Probably has nothing to do with it, but
It's also just like, I mean, the first time you even hear about the pigs is they don't even call them pigs. They say swine breath will keep you healthy, and you're like, wait a minute.
yeah. And I mean, they are directly comparing the pigs to people because of the whole pig mask thing in episode 2. So who knows? Who knows where that'll go? I don't. I might in a couple weeks, but I may just as well, not. We don't know with this show.
Yeah, we may just as well know
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, that's the thing with this show.
Oh, so 6 goes to 2, and he asks about the holes, and this is when 2 tells him that there's nothing in the holes. They're just oblivion. That there's nothing down there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see this really wild scene, and at first glance, I had no idea what was going on. I don't know if it was the same for you, but it's 6 getting taken into the hospital. He's knocked out. 313's like, do we have to keep doing this? Do we have to bring him in like every night? And then you see like he's in one bed, 415's in the other bed. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, well, we actually skipped it, but there was a scene earlier at the very beginning of the episode where you see 313 and 2 discussing something, and they're at the same time they're in this, like, you can tell it's some sort of medical facility, and 313 is doing some sort of medical procedure, but you don't ever see the patients. And at this point in the episode is when it's revealed that it was 415 and 6.
Right. We also, I think, the immediate next scene after this, when they're in the hospital, is 2. Actually, it's not the immediate next scene. It's a little bit after this, but I'm going to explain it now since I'm already on it. Is 2 basically talking with 313 about the quote process unquote, and he basically asks, is it possible to reverse the process? Can you remove love from someone? Which is our first indication that this process is what's creating this love.
Yeah, and he indicates that, like, his wife is in a coma because she loves him or something. Because he was coming on to 313 a little bit, and you could see, like, his wife was, like, reacting to it or something. Not wanting him to do that or whatever. And yeah, and then he says pretty much exactly what I just said. So you kind of get that idea, that impression. Which is obviously, extrapolating from that, he wants to cure love or something like that. So to awaken her, which he has already done, kind of. Maybe with the mystery third drug or something that we don't know what's in it.
I mean, 313 says to 1112 that it's got no, quote, known compounds, unquote.
Maybe it's just candy.
Well, also I realized that, like, so much of what these people know about the world is fed to them by the village. I mean, this goes back to episode 1 when they talked about how it was like, I don't know, 627 who invented the light bulb or whatever. Like, she says it's no known compound in quotes, but that just means that it's not known to her. Like, it's not a compound that was ever told to her by the village. Like, it's only not known within this world that she exists in, but that doesn't mean it's not known in the entire world.
Yeah, that's a good point. So now we're at Lucy's, or not Lucy, 415's, yeah, Lucy's, surprise, it actually is Lucy. Who would have thought? We're at her place, and yeah, things are moving, like, pretty fast. You see her, I guess it was her dad, her father, and he's like, so number 6, like you and 415 are like getting married, right? And he's just like, yeah, I guess so. It's been like a day. There's a really
And
interesting
yeah,
deleted part of this scene that we'll get to at the end. Man.
yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. So 313, I think, or maybe it's 2. Now I don't remember. Basically, like tells 6 wakes up in the hospital bed, and they basically tell him. I think it's both of them actually.
Yeah.
Tell him like your love is like the love you have is manufactured. We discovered that if we like do a little jiggery pokery with your genes, we can get people to fall in love. Like people who are genetically similar, like fall in love, and I'm like,
Yeah, that was an interesting line. Of like, and I mean, it makes you wonder, like, yeah, that's actually, isn't that the opposite of, I don't know too much about this, but like, isn't there some, like, physical, chemical thing of like, that try to create, or like part of, all life is that like, to create genetic diversity, which, keeps you alive and helps the species, flourish, is like, that's why, siblings aren't, I hate to say it this way, but like siblings aren't attracted to each other. There's like some actual like chemical process that makes that happen or something.
I genuinely don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'll try and look it up for the show notes, but it's probably way beyond like what I can comprehend. But I was thinking of that while watching this, and I was like, so he's actually, if that's true or whatever, he's actually saying the exact opposite. But it has this effect of like, yeah, what you said, like, is that really true? Like, and you just don't know, like, it's just this, makes you wonder too of like, what is that actually what they're doing? What's going on here or something.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Just weird stuff, man.
Yeah, and this one is definitely less science fiction than the original. It's more just like almost mystery / thriller, but with like a bunch of weird like stuff thrown in.
Because I feel like what the original was, where the fiction part of the science was in the technology that was used, like the surveillance tech, the big red telephone, but also the giant surveillance room with the seesaw. And so much of that is like, you can't do that now without straying a little too close to reality, to being, like it's really difficult to take where we are now and expand it fictionally.
Yeah, maybe.
But I don't know.
Anyway, 6 says like yes. Because they ask him like, do you still want to marry 415, knowing that your emotions are fake? And he's like, yeah, count me in.
Yeah, he's like, whatever. I love Lucy.
Oh my god.
Zing got him.
Oh my god. And for some reason, like that, the fact that you can extrapolate that from the episode, like that, like in this show, in this franchise, feels like it doesn't feel like a random like little Easter egg or coincidence. It feels like some sort of sinister plot that like you can get I Love Lucy out of this.
Surprise.
Even though it probably has nothing to do with anything,
So they're at the wedding, which is in the middle of literally nowhere.
Yeah, they decide to hold it out in the desert.
And they're all pulling up. 313's there, and she's like, you're going to do this? Like, you don't have to do this. Just fall in love with me instead. He's like, nah, I love 415. And so she's like, well, guess I'm going to have to do this then. And kisses him. 415 is blind, so she doesn't know what's going on, but everybody just goes,
I know, yeah. And then 415's dad has like the funniest line of the episode where he's like, she probably wouldn't have known. Obviously, she would have figured it out eventually because everyone just gasped. But he's like, "Did he just kiss her?"
Yeah, thanks, thanks, man.
Yeah. Like, so let me get this straight. You're saying okay, no. we skipped the scene with 147 where this happens right before this, and it's pretty quick, so I kind of just wanted to detail it, and it's related to what happens right after the wedding scene, where 147 and his wife are clearly estranged now that their daughter has fallen into the hole. She's pissed at him. He seems pissed at her at the beginning, but then later on he seems more just regretful of the entire situation. Where this scene, it seems like he picks up a knife, and it seems like he's going to stab his wife in the back or something. But then he just goes outside and starts trying to dig with a knife because he used a spoon. Because the hole sealed up, we didn't mention.
Yeah, a deleted scene reveals that this hole was probably sealed up by... See, this is another one of these weird things that, like, how do we talk about it without referring to the deleted scenes? Because in the episode as a whole, it kind of seems like the hole just magically repaired itself. Right. But in the deleted scene, we see the people who come after he reported it set up, like, a whole tent, and then when they leave, the hole is filled up, like, heavily implying they filled the hole.
Yeah, and that's the thing that we were kind of that we've been questioning this whole time is, like, when you watch the deleted scenes, you don't know if that was taken out because it's it's not actually part of the episode, or if it is and they just didn't show it to us,
Right. So
yeah, 415 realizes what 6 has just done. It wasn't actually 6. What 313 has just done, but yeah, she's not having that, so she decides to just run into the desert.
6 runs after her.
And she kind of like trips on a little rock or something, and that's when he catches up with her, and he's really pressing her to admit that she's Lucy. And at first she's like, she denies it. She says she doesn't know what he's talking about, but then she eventually like looks in his eye, reveals she's not actually blind, and is like, yeah, I'm Lucy, which I didn't see coming at all.
Yeah, but leaves you the question, does she just break because 6 is pushing her really hard, or does she break because she's actually Lucy?
Yeah, that is true.
And that was something we talked about a lot in the original show, that was like, if 6 breaks, and gives them information, would they even be able to trust it? Would he be just breaking because he doesn't want to be subject to all of that anymore and just give them fake information? Or is he breaking because he actually believes what they're feeding him now?
Yeah. What if they actually did, like, what if in the original show they actually did know why 6 resigned and they were just trying to see whether he would tell them or not?
I mean, that's a possibility. We never see we never see evidence to the contrary of that.
Yeah, wild to think about.
So
then Rover shows up.
Right.
Actually, does Rover show up before she reveals that she's Lucy or after? I don't remember now.
It's after.
It's after, yeah. So Rover shows up, shines a light on her.
Does something.
Yeah, and then just leaves. Meanwhile, back at where the wedding was taking place, number two just sowing the seeds of disarray, just goes up to 313 and he basically whispers in her ear, like, how do you know your feelings aren't being manufactured?
Wow. How do you know your love isn't manufactured 313? You're trying to break the manufactured love between 6 and 415 so that you can get with him. But what if your love is manufactured? Do you ever think about that, 313? He runs off into the distance, snickering.
I know, yeah. Just looking back and pointing as he runs away.
I could see Ian McKellen doing that. Unironically, I could see him doing that. I was
literally just about to say that. Because despite the roles that he has played, although he's played very many, like, he is, the vibe he gives off when he's himself is much more playful, I think, than the roles he plays on the screen.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the past with Lucy. Six wakes up and he's off to go somewhere. I don't really even remember where he's in a rush to go because he's already resigned from his job. But he's in a rush to get somewhere, and Lucy says he asks real quick, "What do you want for breakfast?" And she's like, "Oranges." And then we see him giving someone on the street an orange, and she just eats it with the peel on. Which I guess you can do. I guess you can eat orange peels.
Oh my god, that reminds me of this Reddit post. It was about 2 months ago. I want to say it was in 2021 about a girl who was dating a guy, and he and his family would always eat oranges on the weekend because they grew their own oranges. It was like a family tradition that he had told her about. And she was going to their house for the first time, and she wanted to partake in the orange ritual. So she's at the table in the morning. She's got the orange. They're like, okay, let's eat our orange. And they just all bite into it, peel it off. And she starts peeling it. And her boyfriend's mom is like, what are you doing? Just eat it. And she's like, I am. I'm peeling it, and I'm going to eat the inside. She's like, no, just take a bite right now. And they apparently got into an argument, and she was like, am I the asshole for, like, eating oranges wrong, apparently? Like,
isn't that on the Reddit Am I the Asshole forum? God, I hate some of I've seen the posts on there that people share on other sites, and yeah, it's just a wild time. Most of the time they are the asshole.
But in this case, she was like, I was peeling the orange, and I got into an argument because his whole family eats the orange with the peel on. And she's like, what?
Right. Well, to answer the question, like, I don't know, I don't think you should force your orange eating habits on people. You know, if people want to eat it with the peel on, go ahead. But if you want to peel it, you know, it's on you.
Amazing.
But, like, it's also a pretty big, like, red flag that these people are, like, kind of weird. Or not kind of, just flat out weird. That they're all eating it with it on. And that they have a family tradition where they sit down every weekend and eat oranges together. That's also kind of weird to me. Although I have literally zero family traditions with my family, so, like, yeah, I guess.
So any family tradition would be weird for you, is what you're saying.
Yeah. But anyway, then we cut back to 147 and 6. Again, they're just looking into, I guess, another hole that has opened up somewhere. 147 is making out like he wants to jump in, and 6 is trying to subtly, like, talk him off the ledge.
He's like, don't do it, man.
He tells him something interesting here. Let me see, I wrote it down. 147 says that, like, you know, I care about my daughter, and that's why I have to do this. I have to go in after her because I care about her. And number 6 kind of just repeats what he says before, but he puts in context with this. He's like, you know, what's down there, like, you know, isn't caring about your daughter. What's down there is, like, you know, I think he says oblivion again, or he says, like, nothingness or something like that. I don't know. It put it into perspective for me where it's like, it didn't seem like, you know, coincidental or unimportant. This was right after he met someone from his past life, right? Where it's like, yeah, the facade of the village is breaking, because we didn't actually describe this, but Lucy explains that she was sent there by 2 to break 6's heart. That's what was her entire mission was.
Again, all alleged.
Right, allegedly. And it's just like number 6 is now giving 147 this advice where it's like, you know, the village is just this facade. It's just fake. So, you know, really caring about your life here, as number 147 is doing, caring about his daughter, is really just caring about oblivion. It's caring about, you know, something that isn't real, or something that, like, yeah, will just lead to naught, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of made sense to me that this scene would come right after that, and number 6 would kind of have that perspective here, although it's not vastly different from the perspective he had before.
Right.
I guess just reinforces that, like, Yeah, maybe it does have something to do with him actually making friends in the village and kind of having a life there where it's like he could very well settle into this, but he's reminded that like yeah, all the things that he's kind of has come to care about the people here are actually just some sort of facade as he's learning from Lucy now.
And as he learns when 415 just takes a running leap into the hole right now, as him and 147 are standing there, and he just goes, "No, what are you doing?"
Right. Yeah. And that's, I mean, say what you want about this show. You can't say it's not like visually arresting.
Mm-hmm.
One, with just the visual tricks it plays on you, and two, with just stuff like this where she takes a flying leap into that hole.
In her wedding dress.
Yep. And at the same time, meanwhile, or maybe not, we don't, in the past, I guess isn't meanwhile.
It's being displayed to us concurrently.
Right. Six is on his way back to his apartment, and it explodes. It just blows up from what is presumably his actual apartment. It's a very localized explosion and a small one.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the episode leaves us. I caught a little bit of the next episode because, again, I sat through the credits, and it seems, just for a little sneak peek, it seems like it's going to pick up exactly where this one left off.
Right.
So
we've had that before, though.
Mm-hmm. So probably the biggest cliffhanger ending of the series so far, which again makes sense because this was the midpoint of the series when it was first broadcast on AMC.
Mm-hmm. We also, actually, the final shot of the episode is some woman waking up. Who? I don't know. Could be anyone.
Oh, right. Was that Two's wife?
I don't know.
I don't know either. It was definitely in a different location. It wasn't in her usual.
It's a really zoomed in like shot of a woman opening her eye, and it's like it's a zoomed in enough shot that you can't tell whose eye it is.
Oh, really? Didn't it had her full face though? Didn't it? You could see her entire.
Yeah, but it was also shrouded in shadow.
Yeah, this show likes doing that, shrouding people's faces in shadow.
It's its favorite thing to do, really.
Yeah, it's just going around enshrouding people left and right. I mean, come on. Anyway, one big thing I noticed about this episode while watching the credits, it pays off to watch the full credits. My life choices are finally being justified, is that Jim Caviezel,
Yeah.
had an acting coach. There was a person credited as Jim Caviezel acting coach.
No, that is worth it. You're right. That is a payoff to watching the credits every time for the past 7 years.
Yeah, and I don't know why that's the case. I didn't look into it because I assumed I would find absolutely zero information about it. Probably rightly assumed that, but it's like, yeah, Jim Caviezel is a pretty established actor. I mean, he's not like the world's greatest actor. He's not bad,
He's perfectly serviceable. Let's say that.
Yeah. Maybe it's just
I think he does I think he does a really good job in Person of Interest because he plays a character who doesn't talk much and just has to look cool.
Yeah.
And he has the perfect aesthetic for that.
Which is, in a way, that's number 6's role, too.
Yeah.
Maybe it was more Patrick McGowan 6 than Jim Caviezel 6, but it is for both of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that one episode of the original show, when number 6 wakes up and the village is just empty, like, he doesn't utter a single line until, like, 20 minutes in. I remember, tracking that. He doesn't necessarily look cool in that episode, but... Yeah, he doesn't. I remember he doesn't utter a single line until he goes, "Where is this?" to the people who are who live in the sort of not caravan because it's only them, but like caravan-esque thing, or where is this place or whatever it was. Can't believe I actually remember the dialogue.
Jeez, you remember it a lot better than me.
I've watched it 3 times, so.
Well, that's also true. You're right.
Anyway, yeah, I think that's all I really had on this one. The main things I wanted to point out for this episode, which we already talked about, were like, yeah, just the sheer amount of visual tricks the show seems intent on playing on its audiences. And just that, yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm actually really enjoying the series.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I wanted to talk about was to bring back around last week. We're talking about the song Heroes and Villains. And I mentioned the line, fell in love years ago with an innocent girl, dot, 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 from the home of the heroes and the villains. Just wanted to bring that line back up in relation to 6, falling in love with a girl who's from, quote, the home of the heroes and villains, unquote. 415 is from the village, allegedly, until he realizes or forces her to admit that she's Lucy. But then the question is the Lucy reality, the New York reality, real? Was the village real? But just that line that he fell in love with an innocent girl from the home of the heroes and villains, Just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was really the one thing I wanted to bring up in this episode. Oh yeah, my final note about that woman waking up is that Two's wife in New York? Question mark? Like the New York counterpart of Two's wife, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see.
Actually, there was one other thing I wanted to mention, just very quickly. When 415 is getting attacked by Rover, the screen flashes to a computer screen with a big green list that almost seems like an error message before flashing back to the episode. I don't know what that means, but its placement right at the instant when 415 gets electrocuted by Rover, I thought was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I did not notice that. There are a lot of like little bits of like, man, is this whole thing just like some VR, simulation or something? Right? Or a dream? Like, is it just some sort of collective dream?
Possibly. I mean, that was reading some people's blog posts from when this show aired. There was a theory, a popular theory, that this was a VR. This village was a VR simulation with the intent of getting something out of 6. Mm-hmm. So that was a theory that people had even when this was airing from my research.
Right. Oh, we forgot to mention one last thing in the episode. We kind of touched on it, which is that 1112 gets the information from 313 that he was looking for. One of the pills is a sedative, one is something I forgot, and the other she didn't know. Mm-hmm. I forgot what it was a sedative and something else, and then I forgot what the middle one of the two was. Or the 3, middle one of the 3. God, what am I saying?
Hang on, let me look at my notes to see if I wrote it down. Oh, yeah, okay, I did. The first one is a hallucinogen, the second one is a sleeping pill, and the third one was the unknown one.
Oh, right. Yeah, so we'll have to see how that comes into play, if at all.
Yeah, like the pig thing seems like one of those red herrings, like the cake thing. Yeah,
or more just something, thematic, rather than like we're actually going to have a big deal about these pigs or whatever. But yeah, the meds seem pretty important to, what's going on plot-wise, I guess. Not to say that like the whole, the themes and the messages of the story are not important, but it's a mystery, man. I want to see it solved.
Don't we all? So I guess we could talk about the deleted scenes because there's some really wild ones this week.
Yeah, this is more so than any of the other episodes, this is the one that made me glad that I watched the deleted scenes.
So the first deleted scene is actually multiple scenes in a row. They're labeled 4/32 to 38. And it's basically an extended version, first of the scene where 415's dad sends her off into the world, and And then it goes on. Six is following her. She goes out into the desert. She gets attacked by Rover. This scene was interesting to me because it feels like this was their original conception of how Six would confront 415, or at least find out that she's working for the village in some way or being attacked by Rover, because it feels very similar to the wedding scene later.
Yep.
And so I theorized that maybe they shot this scene originally first like this and then later decided that that scene actually made more sense after the wedding, and then so had to reshoot it with Haley Atwell in the wedding dress.
I thought that too, and I also thought it made me wonder, is what you just described the case, or is it like, because we don't really even know what that flash of light was, so maybe that's something that this deleted scene would have indicated is something that happens on like a regular basis or something, or she goes out and gets scanned by Rover from time to time for some unknown reason,
Right.
And we don't know the answer to that yet. If we ever will.
We might one day.
It'll be within the next couple of weeks, if ever. But then perhaps even wilder is something else stemming off from the scene with 415's dad, which is that as they're talking, they start talking about the matchmaking service or whatever it's called. And then it's revealed that the lady who runs the service, or who is like the face of the service, is just sitting there behind a curtain. Talk about pulling back the curtain. Literally pulling back the curtain, and she's just there.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
I know. Yeah, we talked a lot about in the original Prisoner how Kafkaesque it was. This is the most Kafkaesque scene, like, in this franchise, is that she's just there the entire time. And I mean, to tie it all back, not to tie it all back, but to kind of draw the parallel here, like, that was something that worked in Kafka's stories, where like someone would just be there the entire time and you wouldn't know, or it would be something like that. And that worked because of the format, right? He was just writing novels and stories, just text format. So really kind of just playing with the like, oh yeah, and by the way, I did not describe that, like, they were just there the entire time or something. Whereas it's, whereas this show is, again, doing something similar with the format of, making you think certain things because of how it's shot. And in this scene actually displays that, like, disparity, because it would be very hard to have her in the scene. Unlike, a novel, it would be hard to have there and then kind of trick you and say, like, oh, she was there the whole time, just pan right or something like that. Would feel like almost, again, a cop-out. But here it's, like, literally pointing attention to, she has to be behind this curtain, like, or else we'd see her the entire time. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense. It barely makes sense to me, but hey.
I think I followed. I don't know if I followed enough to make any further comments on what you were saying, but I think I followed.
I think it's interesting that, like, the ways that, like, you can kind of disorient your audience in a show versus any medium, but in this example, it was like a book and a TV show, and you'd have to do that in different ways. And this scene was kind of pointing attention in a way, intentionally or otherwise, was pointing attention to, or calling attention to, like, how you'd have to handle that differently,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
There, got it on the second draft.
That makes more. Yes. The second draft, yes, that was very good. So the third deleted scene is just like it's like a shot of two crushing up some drugs. That's it. It's unknown what drugs they are, for whom he's crushing. Like, it's literally just he's crushing the drugs and that's it.
Putting them on like a cool glass tray. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I guess. I guess.
Reminds me of I probably don't even need to talk about this, but whatever. Like, I knew someone who, like, had never seen those trash cans that you, like, step on the pedal and it opens? Like, they had never seen...
Yes, I have one of those.
One of those until, like, later in life, and they were like, "Oh my god, this is," and like they were born and raised in the U.S. and like they're like, "Oh my god, this is amazing! I've never seen this before," and I was like, "What?"
What?
Anyway, whatever.
Segue complete.
Just my reaction to the glass tray of like, "Whoa, that's awesome!" Like, kind of reminded me of their reaction to the pedal trash can.
Huh. Neat, I guess.
The next scene is also really, really interesting. It's the one we talked about before, where 147 and 6 confront the guy whose job it is to fill up the hole. And we don't
Yeah, they kidnap him, basically.
and we don't even know if that job still exists or if it's like people filling up the holes or whatever in the actual show, or if that was cut, or if it wasn't just, or if it is supposed to be in the show and was just never shown to us, we don't know.
Yeah, a lot of these things may have been cut for time and they were intended to be there, but they cut because they didn't have the time to show it to us. Some of them may have been cut explicitly because they changed the direction they were taking the program, and I think the distinction between those two does like affect how much information we should draw from these, but we'll never know.
Yeah. We will never know, and that's the sad thing is like there's so much written on the original Prisoner, and there will be in the future, and it's such a beloved show, and this one just never had its time in the sun. It doesn't have as much stuff. It doesn't have as many people analyzing it. It doesn't have as many people looking into the making of or anything, and it probably never will.
Man, what a time it would be if we could get Bill Gallagher and Nick Horan to sit down with us and talk to us about what's really going on here, what they were going for,
Yeah. I mean, it would never happen, but it's like, yeah. On some level, though, you just, once it's out in the world, it's out in the world, and you just kind of have to take it for what it is. You just kind of have to, no matter what they say about it, that's my take, Because, like, what if we sat down with Bill Gallagher and Nick Horan? They're like, yeah, it takes place on Neptune. Like, would you then believe them? I freaking wouldn't. So, on some level, you have to take it at what it is.
Sure. But wouldn't it be, like, it would be interesting. It's like how we still to this day don't even know if what Patrick McGoohan says in interviews is what he was actually doing with the show or not. But we're still interested in what he's saying because he was the one who created the show, and the question of extending the show into real life, but just also wanting to see his perspective on the show.
Yeah, for sure. It's still definitely interesting. It's just like we'll just never know, about any of it, and that's the thing. Mm-hmm. We'll never know.
And that's the thing. And then the final scene is just is like 147 talking with 6 and 6 being like, you got to go after your wife. You got to keep your marriage together.
Yep, and that's it.
And those are the deleted scenes.
And
so, Britain/America's 10 actors.
I didn't look up anyone this week. There wasn't really any major players who were new.
I looked up just one, 1819, who I believe is the matchmaker. It's played by Sarah Stewart, whose biggest acting role is Martha in Batman Begins, the Christopher Nolan movies. She's also been in actually a couple British shows, Holby City and EastEnders, as well as Poirot. She was even in Doctor Who. She plays the voice of the computer in End of the World.
Oh, wow.
She was also in Transformers Last Night and The Princess Switch, which are the only other things I recognized of her career.
Yeah, cool.
And on that, I don't have anything else to talk about because there are no emails this week.
Yeah, we didn't get any comments on the social media pages, so...
Well, if you would like to email us, you can reach us at thedoctor@decadvegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on Darling. You can find us on YouTube at Decadent Vegetable. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, anywhere you find a podcast at Inevitable, Classic Sci-Fi Podcast. Be sure to leave a rating if you liked this show.
Check us out on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. Also check us out on Twitter at TYD Podcast and follow us on Twitter. Next time we're going to be watching Schizoid, but until then, the end.